When my husband passed away, I kept quiet about the $8 million he left me. I thought my family would take care of me in my old age, but I was wrong. The sky was gray, a drizzle falling as if heaven itself wept with me. I stood in a plain black dress, clutching a small bouquet of white lilies, the cold wind brushing against my face. The sound of dirt hitting the coffin was like the sound of my heart cracking piece by piece. Around me, my son, his wife, and their children were gathered, all wearing somber faces, whispering condolences to each other, patting my shoulder as if comforting me. My son squeezed my hand gently. "Mom, don't worry. We will take care of you now." I managed a small, tired smile, nodding my lips, trembling. I wanted to believe it. I needed to believe it. Inside, I held a quiet hope that the family I had devoted my entire life to would not let me face old age alone. After the funeral, while everyone was busy cleaning up and returning to their lives, the family lawyer handed me a sealed envelope. "Your husband left this for you, ma'am." I retreated to my small bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, trembling hands tearing open the envelope. Inside was a letter written in my husband's familiar handwriting and a document I could hardly believe. $8 million. He had left it all to me in my name alone, a safety net. He had prepared a final act of love and protection. Tears rolled down my cheeks, staining the paper, as I whispered to his photo on the nightstand, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you leave me alone like this?" I thought about telling my children, about sharing it, so they would not have to struggle, so we could remain a family strong and united. But then I remembered how they barely visited while he was sick, how my daughter-in-law sighed whenever I needed help moving him, how my son would say, "Mom, we're busy. Can you handle this?" I folded the document carefully, locking it away inside an old jewelry box deep under the drawer, deciding to remain silent. I want to see if they will love me even when they think I have nothing. Returning to my son's house felt like stepping into someone else's life. The walls echoed with the laughter of my grandchildren, the chatter of my daughter-in-law, the constant ringing of phones and televisions. I stayed quiet, moving silently from room to room, folding laundry, washing dishes, sweeping the floors. One evening while I was folding clothes, my daughter-in-law passed by and muttered, "You're still awake. You could at least sleep early so you don't use so much electricity." She didn't say it to my face, but loud enough for me to hear. I lowered my head, clutching the shirt in my hand, and whispered to myself, "I'm sorry for being a burden." Every morning I woke up before dawn, preparing breakfast quietly so as not to disturb anyone. I made tea, buttered toast, scrambled eggs, set them on the table. They would come down, barely looking at me, eating quickly before leaving for work and school. My grandson would give me a small smile before running off to catch the bus. "Thank you, Grandma," he would say softly. Those words became the only warmth in my days. The rest of the day I spent sitting by the window knitting, watching people pass by outside, thinking about the $8 million hidden away, wondering what it could change, wondering if it would ever be enough to make them see me. As days passed, the house felt colder, not because of the weather, but because of the growing distance between me and my family. One day I overheard my daughter-in-law speaking on the phone. "No, she doesn't have any money. She's just an old woman who eats and sleeps here. I'm already tired of taking care of her." Her words pierced me like a knife, but I stayed silent, tears welling up in my eyes as I clutched the edge of the kitchen counter to keep myself from falling. That night I cried into my pillow, biting it to muffle the sounds so they wouldn't know I was breaking. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting a golden glow through the kitchen window, my son sat across from me at the dinner table. "Mom, we're having some financial problems. We need some help with bills, groceries, and school fees." I looked down at my hands, wrinkled and trembling, feeling the weight of the hidden truth pressing down on me. "I'm sorry I don't have anything to give," I whispered. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's okay, Mom." But the look in his eyes said otherwise. My daughter-in-law glanced at me from the hallway, shaking her head with a cold smirk, her eyes filled with annoyance. One afternoon, my grandson came to me, tears in his eyes. "Grandma Mommy says you're useless and you don't help around here. She says one day you'll have to leave." I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly as he sobbed into my shoulder. "It's okay, baby. Grandma isn't going anywhere right now." But in my heart, I knew that promise was not mine to keep. That night, I sat alone on my bed holding the photo of my husband. They don't see me anymore, love. They don't see the woman you loved, the mother who raised them, the grandmother who only wanted to be near them. I closed my eyes, letting the tears flow the darkness of the room wrapping around me like a cold blanket. But I will keep my promise to you. I will endure, and I will watch. As I turned off the lamp and lay down to sleep, I made a silent vow to myself I will not speak of the $8 million. I will watch, I will see, and when the time comes, they will know who I am and what they have lost. The house creaked as the night wind blew outside, and I fell asleep to the sound of my own quiet breathing, the photo of my husband held tightly in my hand. They thought I had nothing. They believed I was week-old and worthless, and so they treated me like a burden, while I stayed silent, carrying a truth that would one day change everything. The morning air was sharp, biting into my skin as I stepped outside to sweep the porch. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, but I could barely feel its warmth. I could hear my daughter-in-law's voice inside the house, complaining as usual. She left crumbs on the table again. I'm tired of cleaning up after her. I paused, gripping the broom tightly, looking down at my thin, wrinkled hands, and whispered to myself, I'm sorry for being an inconvenience. During breakfast, I quietly placed the plates on the table, poured coffee, and made toast. They sat down scrolling through their phones, talking about their plans, their work, their lives. No one looked at me. No one thanked me. I stood by the kitchen counter, clutching my cup of tea, pretending to sip it so I wouldn't cry. My grandson, the only light in my days, smiled at me before leaving for school. Bye, Grandma. I nodded, forcing a small smile as the door closed and silence filled the house. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in the hallway, I heard my daughter-in-law on the phone. She doesn't have any money, trust me. She's just a poor old woman living here for free. I can't wait until we can move on without her in the way. I froze, the soft fabric slipping from my hands, falling to the floor. My heart felt like it had been stabbed, the betrayal seeping into my bones. I sank to the floor, holding the shirt close to my chest, tears streaming down my face as I rocked back and forth, trying to silence the sobs that wanted to escape. That evening, my son approached me, shifting uncomfortably as he sat across the table. Mom, we've been having a hard time with bills and expenses lately. Do you have anything you could help with? I looked into his eyes, searching for the son I raised, the boy who used to hug me when he was scared, the boy who once called me his hero. All I saw was a man desperate for money, seeing me as a potential solution to his problems. I lowered my eyes, my voice trembling. I'm sorry, son. I don't have anything. His jaw tightened and he nodded slowly, standing up without another word, leaving me sitting alone at the table with my cold cup of tea. The next morning, as I tried to help clean the kitchen, I accidentally dropped a plate, the sound of it shattering, echoing through the house. My daughter-in-law rushed in, her face twisted in anger. Are you serious? Can't you do anything right? You're just making more work for me. I bent down, picking up the shards with shaking hands, the sharp edges cutting into my skin, small drops of blood falling on the floor. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. She scoffed and walked away, muttering under her breath, Useless old woman. That evening they had friends over for dinner. I cooked the meal, set the table, and stood by the doorway hoping to join them. But as I approached, my daughter-in-law turned and said with a forced smile, Oh, we don't need you here, Mom. You can eat later in the kitchen. I stood there frozen as everyone laughed and continued their conversations, ignoring me completely. I turned and walked back to the kitchen, sitting alone at the small table, eating the cold leftovers, while their laughter filled the house. Later that night, my grandson tiptoed into the kitchen, holding his teddy bear, his eyes filled with tears. Grandma Mommy says you're just a burden. She says one day you'll have to leave. I pulled him into my arms, holding him close as he cried. Shh. It's okay, sweetheart. Grandma is here now. But in the dark corners of my mind, I could hear my daughter-in-law's voice, cruel and cold, echoing the truth I feared. You're just a burden. That night I sat on the floor of my room, the lights turned off, the moonlight seeping in through the window, illuminating the photograph of my husband on the table. I clasped my hands together, tears rolling down my cheeks as I whispered into the darkness, "Why is it like this, love? Why do they see me as nothing? Did I fail as a mother, as a person?" The silence answered me, and I buried my face into my hands, crying until there were no tears left. The next morning, I woke up early as usual, making breakfast, cleaning the dishes, sweeping the floors, moving through the house like a ghost. My daughter-in-law barely looked at me, my son avoiding my eyes as he grabbed his coffee and left for work. I looked at the empty table, the cold tea, the untouched toast, and felt the weight of my existence pressing down on me. That night, I opened the drawer under my bed, pulling out the small box where I had hidden the document of the $8 million. I unfolded it, tracing the numbers with my fingers, the paper crinkling under my touch. $8 million, and they think I'm worthless. I folded it back, placing it carefully in the box, locking it away again. I will not tell them. I will not give them this, not until they see who I am. I stood by the window, looking out at the night sky, the stars twinkling softly, a breeze rustling the curtains. I will endure this. I will see how far they will go. I will see their true hearts. I pressed my hand against the glass, closing my eyes, letting the coolness ground me. And when the time is right, they will know. As I turned away from the window, I felt a calm determination settle into my bones, the bitterness of their words fueling a quiet strength within me. I would endure. I would watch. And I would wait. I thought I had seen everything, but silence allowed me to see deeper. It was in my quietest moments that I discovered how greed could poison a family. Days passed, and I began to notice the small changes in the house. My daughter-in-law no longer pretended to be polite, her sighs louder, her complaints sharper. "I don't know how much longer we can keep supporting her," she would say to my son, not even trying to whisper. My son would stay quiet, avoiding my eyes whenever I entered the room, pretending to scroll on his phone, pretending not to hear. The air in the house felt heavy, pressing on my chest with every step I took. One afternoon, I was folding laundry by the stairs when I heard my daughter-in-law's voice from the kitchen. She was on the phone, her voice cold and calculating. "Don't worry about her. She doesn't have any money. We've checked everything and she's got nothing. She's just an old woman using up our resources." A pause, and then she laughed. "Once we sell the house, we'll finally be free." I froze, clutching the towel in my hands, my heart pounding in my chest. My knees felt weak as I sat down on the step, tears stinging my eyes. They want to sell the house, the home I shared with my husband, and throw me away. That evening after dinner, my son and daughter-in-law called me into the living room. They were sitting on the couch side by side, their faces serious but rehearsed. "Mom, we need to talk." I sat across from them, my hands folded neatly in my lap. "We've decided it's time to sell the house," my son said, avoiding my gaze. My daughter-in-law quickly added, "It's getting too expensive to maintain and we're drowning in debts. We can't keep this up anymore." I swallowed hard, my voice quiet. And where would I go? She shrugged, crossing her arms. "You could go stay with your sister in the countryside. Or maybe it's time to consider a care home." My hands trembled, but I clenched them tighter to steady myself, hiding the storm that was brewing inside. "I see." That was all I said. That night I pulled out the hidden document, once again unfolding it with trembling hands. $8 million. Enough to buy 10 houses. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I stared at it, tears falling onto the paper. Love, they're trying to throw me away. They think I have nothing. I wiped my tears and carefully folded it back, hiding it once again. Not yet. I need to see how far they will go. The days grew colder, but inside the house the coldness came not from the weather but from the people I once called family. My daughter-in-law would scoff when I tried to help with chores. "Just sit down, will you? You're only getting in the way." If I made even the smallest mistake, she would roll her eyes, muttering under her breath, "Useless." My grandson no longer came to sit with me as often as his mother's words seeped into his innocent mind. "Don't bother, Grandma. She needs to rest." But I saw the way he looked at me, confused, torn between love and the whispers he heard from his mother. One afternoon, I was in the garden watering the small patch of flowers I had planted, seeking peace in their gentle colors. The window was open, and I heard my daughter-in-law's voice clearly. Once we get the money from selling this place, we can pay off the debts and finally take that vacation. I'm so tired of her being here using up our money. My son responded, his voice low. I know, but she's my mother, and she's had her life. It's our turn now. I dropped the watering can water, spilling onto the ground, seeping into the dirt. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling, my husband's photo on the nightstand beside me. Love, is this what we raised them to become? The darkness felt suffocating, the silence heavy. I realized that I was not living anymore. I was merely existing in a home that no longer felt like home. As dawn broke, light filtering through the curtains, I made a decision. They will see who I am. They will see what they have lost. I would not give them the satisfaction of taking everything from me, pretending I was nothing, while I held the power they could only dream of. I would wait a little longer, watching, observing, letting them reveal their true selves. And then I would act. One morning, as I walked to the market, a neighbor stopped me, offering me a ride. You look tired. Let me help. I smiled, thanking her, feeling the warmth of kindness I had forgotten existed. On the way, she spoke softly. You deserve to be treated better. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away, nodding silently. I returned home that day, standing at the doorway, looking into the house that no longer felt like mine. I watched as my daughter-in-law scolded my grandson for dropping a cup, her voice sharp and unkind. I saw my son sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television, ignoring the chaos around him. And I realized they are so consumed by their struggles and greed that they have forgotten how to be human. I would not let their bitterness define me. Over the next days, I continued my routine, silent, careful, watching everything. I saw the hidden bills they tried to hide, the late notices they shoved into drawers. I saw the desperation in their eyes, the greed, the entitlement. And I saw how little they saw me, how invisible I had become to them, unless they needed something. That night I stood by the window, looking out at the moon hanging quietly in the sky, my reflection faint in the glass. I touched the glass, whispering to myself, they think I am powerless. They think they can use me, discard me. I closed my eyes, feeling the strength rising within me. But they are wrong, and they will see. They thought they could discard me, that I would leave quietly, powerless and forgotten. But the time for silence was over. It was time for them to see who I truly was. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains as I sat at the small kitchen table, my cup of tea untouched, cooling in the morning air. I could hear the laughter of my daughter-in-law as she spoke on the phone, the coldness in her laughter, reminding me of every sharp word she had ever thrown at me. She's old, she's got nothing, and she's in the way. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. Not anymore. With shaking hands, I picked up the phone, dialing the number I had memorized but never used. After a few rings, a calm, familiar voice answered. This is Mr. Lawson. I swallowed, steadying my voice. Mr. Lawson, this is Margaret. It's time. There was a pause before he replied. Are you sure, ma'am? I looked around the kitchen, the walls that had witnessed my silent suffering. Yes, I'm ready. That evening, I asked my son and daughter-in-law to sit with me in the living room. They exchanged glances, my son looking uncomfortable, my daughter-in-law crossing her arms. What is it now? She sighed, rolling her eyes. I placed a small envelope on the coffee table, sliding it toward them. I need you both to see this. My son picked it up, pulling out the document inside his eyes, scanning the numbers before widening in shock. $8 million. My daughter-in-law leaned forward, grabbing the paper from his hands. What is this? Where did you get this? I looked at her, my voice calm but firm. Your father left it to me before he died. It's in my name alone. Her mouth opened, closing again as she tried to process what she was seeing. My son's face turned pale. Mom, why didn't you tell us about this before I met his eyes, seeing the desperation and the greed mixing in his expression? Because I needed to see how you would treat me when you thought I had nothing. My daughter-in-law's face turned red, her eyes narrowing. You let us suffer thinking we were struggling while you sat on all this money? I took a slow breath. You let me suffer while I lived in this house while you mocked me, humiliated me, treated me like a burden. Suddenly the harshness in their voices softened, replaced with false concern. Mom, we're sorry, my son said, reaching out for my hand. We didn't mean to treat you badly. We were just stressed, my daughter-in-law added, forcing a smile. I pulled my hand back gently. You're only sorry now because you know what I have. I stood up, my frail frame feeling stronger than it had in years. I am leaving this house. I will not be your burden anymore. I will not live where I am not respected. My daughter-in-law's face twisted. What about the money? We're family. I shook my head. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. They fell silent, the room heavy with tension. That night, I quietly packed my clothes, folding them neatly into a small suitcase. I picked up the photo of my husband, holding it close to my heart. I'm doing this for me, love. For the first time, I'm choosing myself. As I zipped the suitcase shut, I felt a calm strength filling the emptiness that had lived within me for so long. The next morning, I stood at the door, my suitcase by my side. My grandson ran up to me, tears in his eyes. Grandma, where are you going? I knelt down, brushing the hair from his forehead. Grandma needs to find a place where she can be happy, sweetie. He hugged me tightly, and I felt a tear slip down my cheek. My son and daughter-in-law stood behind him, their faces tight, their eyes on the floor. I stood up, looking at them one last time. Take care of your son, and remember, respect is worth more than any amount of money. I stepped outside, the morning air cool on my skin, the sun warm on my face. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I hailed a cab, giving the driver the address of a small apartment I had arranged with Mr. Lawson's help. As the cab pulled away, I looked back only once, the house growing smaller in the distance, its walls filled with memories both good and painful. Goodbye. The apartment was small but cozy, a place where I could breathe without fear, without judgment. I placed my husband's photo on the nightstand, arranging my clothes in the small wardrobe, making the space mine. That evening, I brewed a cup of tea, sitting by the window, watching the city lights twinkle as the sun set. This is my peace. The next day, I visited the bank with Mr. Lawson, securing the funds in my name, organizing a portion to be set aside for charity and for my grandson's education. He deserves a future better than what his parents showed him. The bank manager smiled, nodding in respect. You're a wise woman, Mrs. Thompson. I smiled back, for the first time feeling seen, feeling valued. That night I stood on the balcony, the cool breeze brushing against my face, the city alive below. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. They saw me as weak, powerless, a burden. But they were wrong. I opened my eyes, looking at the stars above. I am strong. I am free. They thought the money defined my worth, but it never did. I was always enough, even when they couldn't see it. And now I will live the rest of my days with dignity, peace, and strength. Sunlight poured into my small apartment, illuminating the wooden floors and the potted plants I had placed by the window. I sat at the small table with a cup of tea, the steam rising gently, the aroma comforting. For the first time in years, I could take a sip of tea while it was still warm without being interrupted by complaints or harsh words. Outside, children played in the courtyard, their laughter drifting through the open window. This is what peace feels like. One afternoon, I received a visit from Mrs. Green, an old friend from the neighborhood I had left behind. She sat across from me, her hands wrapped around the cup of tea I had made. I went by your old house yesterday, she said softly. I looked at her, waiting. Your son lost his job. They tried to sell the house, but there are debts tied to it. I heard the bank is going to take it. I lowered my eyes, feeling a mix of sorrow and quiet justice. They are reaping what they have sown. I started taking morning walks in the park nearby, breathing in the fresh air, watching the sunrise over the trees. Birds chirped above me, and I felt alive in a way I hadn't in so long. No one was yelling at me. No one was calling me a burden. I was simply me. One day while I was at the market, I overheard two women talking. Did you hear about the Thompson family? They're losing their house. The daughter-in-law was always so proud, looking down on everyone. Now look at them. I turned away, focusing on the apples I was choosing, my hands steady. Inside, I felt no joy at their downfall, only a solemn understanding. They built their lives on greed and disrespect, and now it has crumbled. One afternoon, I found an envelope slipped under my apartment door. It was a letter written in the messy handwriting of a child. Dear Grandma, Mommy, and Daddy are always fighting now. I miss you. Can I come see you? Love, Ben. Tears filled my eyes as I read the simple, honest words. I pressed the letter to my heart, whispering, I miss you too, my sweet boy. That evening, my phone rang, the screen flashing his name. I answered quietly, Hello. There was a pause before he spoke. Mom, I'm sorry. We're in a bad place. I don't know what to do. His voice was filled with regret, with exhaustion, with the weight of choices he had made. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. I know. He whispered, Can we come see you? I paused, letting the silence stretch. Your son can come see me. You and your wife need to fix yourselves first. I went to the bank the next day and arranged for a small trust fund to be set up in my grandson's name, ensuring he would have what he needed for school. I made it clear that it was only for him, protected from the hands of his parents. As I signed the papers, I felt a sense of quiet strength. I will help him, but I will not allow them to take advantage of me again. A week later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, he was my grandson, holding a small backpack, his eyes brightening when he saw me. Grandma, I knelt down, hugging him tightly, feeling the warmth of his small body in my arms. I missed you so much, he whispered. I missed you too, I replied, my voice trembling. We spent the day together, cooking simple meals, playing cards, and laughing. It was a day of light in the midst of everything that had gone wrong. As the sun began to set, my son arrived to pick him up. He stood at the door looking older, tired, his eyes avoiding mine. Thank you for today, Mom. I nodded my hand, resting gently on my grandson's shoulder. Take care of him. He deserves better. He met my eyes, tears brimming. I know. That night, I sat by the window, the cool breeze drifting through the city lights, twinkling like stars on the ground. I sipped my tea, closing my eyes, letting the peace wash over me. They thought they could break me, but they only freed me. I opened my eyes, looking at the photo of my husband on the table. Love, I'm okay now. With the money I had kept hidden, I began to quietly help others. I donated to local shelters, funded scholarships for children in need, and supported elderly people who had no family. Each act of kindness was a balm to the wounds that had once hurt so deeply. I will turn the pain they gave me into light for others. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the lines on my face, the silver in my hair. I touched the reflection, gently smiling, softly. You survived. You are strong. You are enough. The mirror reflected not an old, forgotten woman, but a survivor, a woman who had reclaimed her life. Freedom is not just leaving what hurts you. It is finding who you are when no one is watching and choosing peace every day. They may have fallen, but I have risen. Every morning, I wake before dawn. The small apartment is silent, the world outside still wrapped in sleep. I open the window, letting in the cool air, listening to the distant chirping of early birds. I brew my tea, the warmth comforting against my palms as I sit by the window, watching the sky slowly shift from dark blue to soft orange. Another day to live in peace. One morning, as I was dusting the shelves, I found a photo album tucked between books. Carefully, I sat down, flipping through the pages. There were pictures of my wedding day, my husband's bright smile, the way he looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. Pictures of my son as a baby, his tiny hands gripping mine, his first steps, his first day of school. Tears welled in my eyes, but they did not burn like before. We had good moments too. On a warm afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, my grandson stood there, holding a small bag. his eyes lighting up when he saw me. Grandma. He spent the weekend with me, helping me water the plants, cooking simple meals, reading stories together. At night, he curled up beside me on the couch, whispering, "I like it here. It's peaceful." I smiled, brushing his hair back. "I like it here too." One evening, as the sun was setting, my phone rang. It was my son. "Mom." His voice was hesitant, fragile. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I know." There was silence before he continued. "I lost so much, and I realize now that I lost you too." My eyes softened. "Take care of your family. Learn from the mistakes." "I will." I learned to find joy in the small moments. Watering my plants each morning, watching them bloom under my care. Walking in the park, greeting neighbors, feeling the wind in my hair. Cooking meals for myself, savoring each bite, appreciating the effort it took to feed myself with love. Lighting a candle at night, sitting by the window, reading a book as the world outside quieted down. I have found a life I never knew I needed. One evening, as the rain fell gently outside, I sat by the window, the sound a soft lullaby against the glass. I held the photo of my husband, tracing the lines of his face with my finger. Love, I made it. A tear slipped down, but it was a tear of acceptance, not sorrow. I am okay now. At the community center, a young mother approached me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for helping me. I was lost, but your kindness gave me hope." I hugged her gently, whispering, "You are stronger than you know." Walking home that day, I realized that the pain I endured had transformed into something beautiful, the ability to help others rise from their darkness. That night, I lit a candle, placing it on the small table by the window. I made a cup of tea and sat down, the warm light of the candle dancing on the walls. Outside, the city lights twinkled, the sound of rain soothing. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth and the quiet fill me. I am free. I no longer felt anger toward those who hurt me. I no longer wished for things to be different. I accepted the journey, the pain, the silence, the revelations. All of it led me to this moment where I could live fully, love myself, and find peace. If you are watching this, wondering if it is too late to start over, know this: it is never too late to choose yourself. It is never too late to walk away from what hurts you. It is never too late to find peace. You deserve to live, to love yourself, to be free. In the quiet of my new life, I found who I was meant to be. I am not just a mother, a wife, a grandmother. I am a woman who survived, who chose peace, who chose herself. And in that choice, I found freedom.